Hi, I'm Megan, and I did my literature investigation over Lewis and Clark, and I found a bunch of really good books, and I enjoyed finding all these books and reading about them and just learning more about Lewis and Clark that I didn't even know. My novel was Streams to the River and River to the Sea, and it's a novel of Sacagawea, and Sacagawea was a girl along the trail and along the path that Lewis and Clark ran into, that she was able to help them and guide them and just kind of be an extra resource to them, as she was an interpreter for them when they didn't know the language in the certain area as they were traveling to the west. And she would speak to them and help them along the way, and help them get more resources that they might need to like cross the Rocky Mountains when they needed the horses to cross over the Rocky Mountains, as that was a pretty big roadblock for Lewis and Clark along their expedition and their journey. And then my chapter book was Lewis and Clark and the Expedition. It just simply talks about all of their trials and just bringing history to life and how they prepared, what they crossed, what they went through, what happened, and then it talks about their journey home. And this was just a really good book that just hits all the details about their expedition. And then my 5 picture books that were fiction, I had Sacagawea, Lewis and Clark Would Be Lost Without Me. I am Sacagawea because even though my midterm topic was Lewis and Clark, Sacagawea was a very big, important person, and she made a very big impact on the expedition and even in her life, because it says Lewis and Clark would be lost without me. So without Sacagawea, who knows if Lewis and Clark would have crossed the Rocky Mountains, or who know where they would have ended up if they didn't come across Sacagawea and all her resources that she carried as a woman, a young woman who had a baby and was able to go along on this journey with Lewis and Clark that took 2 years. So here's the other one. It says, I'm Sacagawea. And she was very strong, very confident woman. And on the back, it says, I will blaze my own trail. So no matter what people thought of her being a woman or anything, like, she was going to do what she wanted to do and what she knew was right. And she was very strong and confident and adventurous, obviously. And then I had Lewis and Clark, a prairie dog for president. So they go along the way on their path, and the president, Thomas Jefferson, wants resources to be brought back to him because he put the whole expedition together and sent Lewis and Clark out. So he wanted the prairie dog, or just any kind of resource that they found in the West that wasn't necessarily in the area that they lived in at the time. And so they found plants, birds, and a prairie dog, and they sent him back with a guy to Thomas Jefferson so that they could see what was being found in the West and all the resources that were being found. And there's just a quick picture of the prairie dog and the president. And so then there's another one that says, you wouldn't want to explore Lewis and Clark, an epic journey you'd rather not make. It talks about all the journeys that they went through, the bears that they encountered, the Rocky Mountains that they had to cross, and just the wilderness that they went through that they've never seen before, how cold it got, and just the whole exploration of Lewis and Clark and their journey to the West. And then here's another one that says, Travel with the Great Explorers. And this is a great book. It had a bunch of different extra little boxes and comments. It had a bunch of different boxes and comments along the way. And it says, did you know the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 more than doubled the size of the United States? So it just talks about different things and adds extra information in the book. I loved this book. This book was so awesome for students to get to see, and very colorful and very pictures everywhere, and very informational and very factual. And then my other books were my nonfiction books, which had Lewis and Clark in their own words. I had 2 books about Thomas Jefferson because he was the one that created the whole expedition and started it, and encouraged Lewis and Clark to go on this expedition to the West to find resources and just expand the U.S. and purchase the Louisiana Purchase and just find resources that people didn't know where they were located at that time. And Lewis and Clark went on the adventure, like it says in this book, in their own words. It's super cool because it has their own version of like what happened and like their words. Like here you can see where the text is black, and then where it changes are the words of Lewis and Clark, which is all throughout this book. And it's so cool to get to see their perspective on this and like what they said and what they went through. Because it wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard, but it was very they got rewards for it, and they became heroes. And then there's plants on the trail with Lewis and Clark, and it just talks about the plants that were on the trail of Lewis and Clark, and how there were plants that they could eat, there were plants that they could make hats out of, there were plants and like trees that they could cut a hole in and make a canoe to like get through rivers and stuff. So this book is super cool. And then 100 Things You Want to Know About the Explorers. This kind of went along with this book, as well as The Travelers and the Great Explorers, and it was really neat and really cool. And then my movie, which was a National Geographic Lewis and Clark film. It was very informational, very factual, and I loved watching it and just learning all about Lewis and Clark and this literature investigation. And I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you.